Did you ever play Icewind Dale? People wax lyrical about the original Baldur's Gate, and often Planescape Torment too. And of course people speak very well of these little known sequels to Baldur's Gate 2 and the much more recent Baldur's Gate 3. But Baldur's Gate 3 is a whole separate thing and nothing to do with what I'm talking about. But Icewind Dale seems to be the red-headed stepchild of the Infinity Engine games, and generally gets less talked about. And when it does get talked about, it's usually in conversation as the weakest of the Infinity Engine games. But you know what? It's my favourite of the whole bunch. Although I will admit I have never played Planescape Torment. It's one of those games I keep meaning to get round to and just never do. Anyway, Baldur's Gate was not only the first of the Infinity Engine games, but it was the first one I played. In fact, I actually bought my first PC pretty much just to play that game. Now you see, my gaming tastes, I started off on the home micros primarily, having a Spectrum C64, an Amiga, and also got into consoles, Master System, Mega Drive, Super Nintendo, and Atari Jaguar. Then going on to the PlayStation, and then 64 to a limited degree. Anyway, come my late teens, I got into the whole going out clubbing, drinking and partying, and as you do at that age, and I sort of drifted away from games a bit. I mean, I was still playing here and there, but much less than I used to. But after a couple of years of that and slowing down a bit on it, and essentially rediscovering role-playing, I met a few people, and we established a role-playing group. We were playing D&D and Cyberpunk and a few other games, as in the original tabletop games. This was 1998 or so after all. Anyway, I was drifting away from console gaming. I bought my PC and I started playing a few games, revisiting some old ones like Elite or Frontier First Encounters, and some other strategy-based things, bit of Civilization and Age of Empires, things like that. But it was Baldur's Gate that made me invest in a PC, because I saw it running, and I played other RPGs. I played Final Fantasy VII and various older RPGs on home computers or buck rudges on the Mega Drive. Anyway, I saw Baldur's Gate and it really looked like it was a good representation of the D&D world and rules, and I was really interested in playing that, as I was very much into D&D at the time. So yeah, I picked it up. I really enjoyed the game, found it quite challenging in places. I mean, it was my first of these games, and it was a fantastic game. But I finished it, and I found myself struggling to replay it. The opening seemed quite dull and tedious, and finding your feet was awkward. It wasn't a game that I had any real desire to replay at that time. And I remember hearing about Icewind Dale, and what really drew me to it was that rather than creating one character and recruiting companions, you got to create your whole party and set out stall from what you want to do. If you want to have a team of all bards singing and fighting, well, yeah, you could do that. And I really wanted to sort of recreate the D&D feel of having a party of adventures, different characters and their different abilities playing off each other. I mean, sure, you can do that with companions in Baldur's Gate, but tailoring a squad to your need, yeah, that was of appeal to me. And also having a narrative that isn't tied into one character, wasn't so specific, I thought was a good move. It just meant that I could replay it and it wouldn't feel like the same adventure again, just like a rehash of it. It could play out very, very differently rather than variations on a theme. So as soon as it came out, I picked up Icewind Dale for the PC with a great big box. Well, it wasn't great big, but it's a big box, and yeah, it lived up to expectations. It was like Baldur's Gate, but more. Yeah, sure, you didn't have such a strong narrative or as many NPCs to talk to, and despite the game being a bit more freeform in choosing your squad and your characters, the actual gameplay was a bit more linear. But it also worked in its favour as well. It was more of a dungeon crawler. And having that you could level up a lot more. You could go up to, I think, level 30, as opposed to, I think, about level 5 or 6 or something in Baldur's Gate. You got to really experience the whole spread of the levels and the abilities and spells and everything that you got in the D&D rule set. The combat ended up being a bit more tactical, giving you more options, as the game had more classes, subclasses, weapons, spells and everything than Baldur's Gate. And just like that game, it still had the real-time with pause combat. with the game mechanics being straight out of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, or Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition, as I suppose you'd call it nowadays. And for someone like me who was really into D&D, and the character creation on it was kind of a bit of a joy, being able to experiment with different classes and things. The amount of times that I played and restarted the game, or chopped out characters, created new ones, really finding what worked, what I liked, and it is a game that I played loads back then. I thought the graphics were fantastic. I say fantastic. They weren't heavily detailed like many other games at the time, although 3D was the thing then, I suppose, as well. But the environments were evocative, and they really sold you on the feel of the world. The music is absolutely fantastic. It's not surprising, it's by Jeremy Soule, who also did music for Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, Elder Scrolls Morrowind, Oblivion and Skyrim, and many other games. Although you might say the soundtracks that Jeremy Soule did are a little bit tainted by his reputation, as there were some accusations. I won't go into it here, but you can easily Google it. There were some things with a Kickstarter he did which never delivered or whatever, and there was these other things which, it's no wonder he hasn't really done any work since. But moving on, the sound effects are generally very good. There's some quite good voice work in the game, and some of the character voices are quite amusing, one of which is actually voiced by Mark Hamill, something I only learnt recently. But now I hear it and I can't unhear it. But back in the day I certainly didn't pick up on it. Plot-wise, the game is quite straightforward. There is a lot of lore to it. Some ancient battle, a demon, a barbarian king who saved the day and all this sort of stuff. But it does have bearing on what you do in the game. But it has no bearing on the characters. There's no relation between the characters you play as or the characters you create and the plot. And I said this, I think this is mostly a good thing. It's a shame there wasn't more in the way of side quests or something. But overall, it's a good adventure to work your way through. You can enjoy the atmosphere and the exposition and the character voices. It is well written what is there. But mainly is an excuse to go to dungeons, hack up various enemies, loot them, get better gear, and do the whole cycle. And the environment or the world that it's set in really has a great feeling. The music is quite melancholy and otherworldly. The adventure is set in the Icewind Dale, a very icy region of the worlds of the Forgotten Realms. And I believe chronologically in the story of all the whole Forgotten Realms things, this is one of the earliest, if not the earliest, set game or story. But anyway, between the music and the frozen environments and the nice graphics with little bits of environmental storytelling, really sort of sell you on the location and the feel, and it works perfectly for the game. More the narrative is quite light, and the quests don't really lean too hard into environmental storytelling. It does a lot to just let your imagination do its own thing, and this works great with your custom created characters. You can write bios for them if you really want, but it really feels that you're playing through the adventure rather than playing through a story, if that distinction makes any sense. It basically feels more like you're pushing it forward rather than just on the rails of the story. I know what I'm trying to say, and I'm not saying it very well. So trying again, I guess what I would say is, not having a character driven story, you feel more in control of the characters. They're more of an extension of you, and you're playing it what feels like more your way, even if it is a more linear game. I find it gave a greater sense of place and of being there, or of your characters experiencing it, than Baldur's Gate ever did. Again, maybe that's just a me thing. Maybe I just got more into it. Maybe my imagination connected with it more because less was told. It was more for me to fill in the gaps. As a result, it felt more like my struggle rather than playing a role and helping someone with their struggle. I also found that when it came to the combat, the encounter designs were often very well designed. It could be really demanding when it comes to managing the crowd control, buffing your characters, using area effect spells. You couldn't really rush in, although the footage you see on screen mainly involves rushing in because it's early in the game, and I was just capturing footage, to do this video. It's not like I have any playthroughs filmed. You could say that the There are difficulty spikes, but you could also say the combat does get a bit repetitive because it is so combat focused. It doesn't do much else. There isn't so much story breaks and that. But again, I actually really enjoyed it for that. Anyway, I would say that overall Icewind Dale is a beautiful, atmospheric and tactically rich RPG that does stand apart from its Infinity Engine brethren. So, as I asked at the beginning, did you play Icewind Dale? How do you think it compares to the other Infinity Engine games, or perhaps even some of the more modern CRPGs that have taken cues from those games, including Baldur's Gate 3 or the Pillars of Eternity games? I should mention the footage captured here is from the Enhanced Edition, as I no longer have the original discs. They got lost somewhere along the lines in moving and things over the years. But I did play all of the expansions for it back in the day as well, and having those again in this Enhanced Edition is great. Although I have noticed a few niggles with it. I did when I played through it when it came out some years ago. I haven't done a full playthrough in, quite some time now. So maybe those have been patched. Again, there were minor things and it was fully playable and enjoyable, so yeah, it's a non-issue. And yeah, I think I have gone on long enough about this now, so thank you for watching and I'll see you on the next one.